All right, so let's modify our code a little bit so that whenever our player is moving, um, we can only use the A and D key, and the animation will only trigger when we're moving on the x-axis. Because right now, notice when I press play, I'm pushing W and S and still triggering the walk, which is what I don't want. I want the animation only trigger on A and D. And you notice that the line went from any state when I was pressing A and D to go to walk. So let's just go inside of here in our transition and let's go ahead and set this up. I'm going to double click my script craft here so we could just zoom in on this section here. Remember, you can hold control and scroll your wheel into zoom. All right, so let's go ahead and log this movement so that we can see our actual WASD keys inside of our console. So I'm just going to, let's see, control right click, and I'm just going to type in debug. And here's my debug.log message. I'm going to link this up. And I'm going to grab my message here. I'm just going to link it inside of here. And what this is going to do, once I save that, is let's go ahead and open up our console. I'm going to hit Control Shift C. You can see that down here. I'm also going to move my inspector over so you can see this a little bit. So with my player selected here, and as we're looking at console, if I press the D key, notice it says here on the x-axis, right, which is this position here, we're adding 1 to the movement, right? So as I'm holding this down, it just keeps pushing 1. If I push my A key, it gives me -1 in the x-axis. Now, if I push up, you can see it puts a 1 in the y-axis, right? That's right here. And if I push a S, it gives me a -1. So all we have to do is just check, instead of our debug.log here, we want to replace this and just have a branching if statement. That's just saying, hey, if the movement on this axis here, right, is not 0, right, then we are actually moving and we don't want to use W or S to play this animation. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this debug.log and let's wire that up. All right, so remember, control right click to open up your fuzzy finder, type in if, and we can just wire this into, and we could say, okay, if this is true, and we're going to add the condition in a second, we're going to trigger the animation, right? So this is if our movement, our set variable, which is on our x-axis here, is true, we're going to move it. And remember, if our y-axis is 0, we want it to be false. So I'm going to drag this out and I'm going to type equal. Actually, you know what? Well, we want we want to get the y-axis here. So that's the x-axis. There we go, vector 2. We want to get the y-axis here. And we want to just check if this equals 0, and I'll grab an integer literal node. And it already comes with a 0 inside of here. And so what we're saying here is, okay, if our y-axis is set to 0 and, is set to 0, whatever, we're not going to trigger it. This is going to be false. We won't trigger our animation. So just to kind of clarify what's happening, if the y-axis is equal to 0, so right, we're wiring this into this, and we have this wired to the true node. That's the only way that this is going to run, is if the y-axis is set to 0. So let's save that and let's test it. So I'm going to go ahead and push my W key once this loads up. You can see he stays in idle. If I push my A and D key, our character is walking. All right, so let's go ahead and flip our guy. So I'm going to move this over a little bit. And I'm going to go back to my player here. And I'm going to go inside of my walk script craft here. And you can see we've got a couple going on here. Let's see. Now, if you recall, this one down here, I'm going to delete out these update and on exit state. We could always add those back. We have our walk animation, right? And then here we have our movement. So I'm going to hold control, swipe this out, and this is what actually moves our player. And then we'll make another one up here for flipping our player. All right, so let's go ahead and add back that on update. So control right click to bring up your fuzzy finder and just start typing on update. And if you select our player here, an easy way to make it look like our character is going back and forth is we can just go into our sprite renderer here, grab our sprite renderer and just hit flip on the x-axis. See that? So they have a nifty node here and it's just called flip. I think it's called flip X. Yeah, so sprite renderer, and then we're just going to, let's see, I think get flip X. No, we want to set the flip X because we want to set it. That has like a Boolean. Let's see, flip. Let's see, set flip X. There we go. And when this is checked on or off, this is what's going to flip it on the x-axis here. Now let's go to our object here and let's grab our movement variable. Now, why are we doing this? To recall that this has two parameters. It has an X and a Y parameter. And if our player position is moving towards the negative, which is this way, what I'd like to do is I'd like to flip our player to the left. And if I'm going to the right, if it goes to the positive here, I'd like my player to flip to the right versus the left. So what I can do here is just drag this out and I can type get, and you can see here, I want a vector 2. Okay, let's just do vector 2. Get X. And this will get that value of the X depending on what the movement variable is. Because remember, this is a global variable that's always being updated in another script. So an easy way to do this is I'm going to drag this out. I'm going to look for less. And remember, we're looking for a negative value. So right now, what I'm saying here, and let's go ahead and wire this up here. And actually, you know what? We need a branching node here, which is our if node. So what we can do is say this, okay. And we can copy this too. So we're going to say, okay, if it's true, let me zoom in a little bit, that we are moving in a maybe negative way, we'll flip X. And if it's this way, right? Because remember, when we turn this on, it flips to the left, which is negative. Well, this, if it's true that we're moving negative, then we'll turn it on. Otherwise, we'll move to the right here. And then we can wire this in here because all we're doing is checking if this value coming in is less than 0, like that. All right, I'm going to save that. Let's move this over and press play. Hopefully that error clears up. Yeah, so there we go. Now we have a similar to the right or left, my character flips. And I push up and down, our character's animation doesn't play at all. All right, that looks pretty good.